Today I'll be showing you how to build an upgraded and improved raid farm for Minecraft Bedrock Edition. As you can see, this thing is absolutely tiny, it is incredibly easy to build, and super efficient. It produces thousands of items per hour, it's going to give you a ton of emeralds, and a load of totems of undying. This raid farm is fully automatic and AFK-able, it's also safe, so you can stand here and use the farm for as long as you want. Raid farms are basically one of the best farms in all of Minecraft, and this is one of the better ones. We're applying the looting 3 effect to every raid that we kill, meaning that we get about 3/4 of a double chest of items per raid completed, and that of course includes stacks of emeralds, tons of totems, lots of enchanted books. You can get basically any enchantment in the game from a raid farm besides just a couple, and you also get some potions, iron gear, crossbows, and a lot of other stuff. And you get all of this loot as well. Of course, you also get a fair amount of experience from this farm as well. It's equivalent to that of a blaze farm, so it's not a ton, but if you AFK for a while, it does add up. So let's take a look at everything that we're farming in this raid farm. There is quite a bit of stuff, so bear with me, but we are farming 5 different types of mobs: the pillagers, vindicators, evokers, witches, and ravagers. The pillagers are going to drop a combined total of 6 different items. That includes basically any enchanted book in the game, banners, a bunch of iron tools and weapons, crossbows, and some arrows. Vindicators are going to be giving you emeralds and a bunch of iron gear. Evokers are the most prized possession in the raid farm because they of course give you totems of undying and a bunch of emeralds. Witches, these guys just drop all kinds of things. Like they drop 10 different items. It's a lot of stuff. It's all just garbage, but hey, maybe it's kind of useful. And then you got ravagers. These guys are the bane of our existence. These are terrible, but they drop saddles. Actually, they don't. This farm uses lava, so we're not getting any saddles at all. Keep in mind that you need to be playing on hard mode in order to get totems of undying and evokers. If you're not playing on hard mode while using the raid farm, your rates are going to be decreased and you're not going to get all the items. So let's go over how this raid farm works. It's actually incredibly simple. We start off with a Pillager Outpost. Every raid farm on Bedrock needs a Pillager Outpost, and this is so that you can get the Bad Omen effect. You need the Bad Omen from the pillagers that are wearing the banners on their heads, and whenever we kill them with this Trident killer, we're gonna get the Bad Omen effect. The Bad Omen effect allows us to go up to our raid farm, which is basically just a box with some water and a Trident killer in it, and then as soon as we get up here, that's going to activate a raid at that village, and all the raiders are gonna summon inside of this little box right here. And as you can see, we got ourselves some pillagers. Now, all the pillagers are gonna be going towards the front of the farm. You just stand right here against this glass. The pillagers can't hurt you or anything like that. You'll pick up the experience through the wall, and then all the items will get pushed down into your storage system. As you can see, they just fall right on down. Now, because we're using a Trident killer, you need to be holding a looting 3 sword in your hand to apply the looting 3 effect to all the mobs that are killed. Just by holding it, you're going to be getting 2.5 times the rates. If you're not holding it, your rates are going to be ruined. If you want to learn more about Trident killers, check out the tutorial linked down below. This farm is designed to be as simple and easy to build as it can be. That way, in case anything changes in the future or if anything breaks, it's incredibly easy to fix or tear down and build a new version, because this is raid farm version 7. Speaking of previous versions, why is this raid farm better than the previous ones? Well, let me explain. First of all, it's simpler and easier to build. The entire premise of this is that it's just a box and then all the ravagers die in lava, so we don't need to worry about them at all. The only redstone that's up here is a Trident killer, and this thing should never break. If it does, you have easy access to replacing that Trident. The upper part of this farm is also fireproof as well, so as you can see, we have a lava source, but even if fire spreads is turned on, none of your farm is gonna burn down. I've also thoroughly tested this thing. I've ran it for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and built it on truly bedrock, and it hasn't had any issues, and no vexes have spawned either. Overall, it should be very reliable until Mojang inevitably breaks or changes something, which they do every 2 to 3 updates. The lower part of this farm does not need any spawn proofing whatsoever. As you can see, there's no leaves in the area or on the floor, so that's going to save you a lot of time and resources. We're also using a simplified Trident killer from the 24 stacked raid farm that Pico Nico designed. This thing is just incredibly simple, very cheap, and really reliable. Unfortunately, there's been a nerf to raid farms. Whenever you complete a raid, there's now a 30-second cooldown between raids, and that just significantly hurts the rates of basically every raid farm on Bedrock Edition. Even if you get Bad Omen in this window, it's just completely wasted, and you just have to wait the mandatory 30 seconds to start a new raid. So raid farm rates are lower now than they were previously, but there's not much you can do about that. Raid farms have also been buffed though. The Hero of the Village effect now works properly, so if you complete a raid, you'll get 40 minutes of the Hero of the Village effect. You can now travel across the world to multiple different villager trading halls or go wherever you want, and villagers will give you a trading discount. So that is pretty nice. Before we jump into the tutorial, consider subscribing so that you don't miss future tutorials on the channel, and keep in mind there's a full materials listed down in the description of the video that tells you every material that you need to build this with. But let's hop into it. The first thing that you need to do is find yourself a good Pillager Outpost, and not all are made equal. You're either going to have 1, 2, or 4 different spawning spots, and the more spawning spots you have, the more Bad Omen you'll get, the more raids you'll get. So the first thing that you need to do is find out which direction is north. So the sun rises in the east, of course, so if you turn to your left, bam, that's north. Anyway, what you need to do is find the top stair of the Pillager Outpost, to go in towards the center by 2 blocks, and place down a solid block. This is actually going to be the first and easiest spawn spot in your Pillager Outpost. We're going to place in a temporary block right there, and then some glass panes to the north of that and to the west of it, so that it kind of makes a little bit of a square like this. And now go ahead and kill all the other pillagers in the area. So once you've killed the pillagers, just go ahead and back up by about 20 or so blocks, and you should see a pillager spawn in between those glass panes pretty much immediately, and that's going to tell you that you found the right spawning spot. And there we go, we got ourselves a pillager captain. If you want to learn more about finding these spawn spots or how to get a Pillager Outpost with 4 spawning spots, I made a separate tutorial for that. Go check that out. It can significantly increase the rates of your raid farm. So once you have your spawn spot figured out and you know the pillagers spawn in between these glass panes, we need to build the Trident killer. So this is the north direction right here. We're going to place some solid blocks to the east and south of that spawn spot, and then you can get in yourself a stair and these 2 locations, and then just a couple more blocks in these areas like so. Basically just going ahead and filling in this whole area with this general shape. So we're going to pop out this block right here on the edge, place a temporary block down there, and then a chest and a hopper directly above it. So go ahead and place in yourself a water bucket on that stair and that stair. All that water should flow directly into that hole, and it should not cover up the spawn spot. That's very important. So go ahead and remove your glass panes now. We need to go ahead and put in a full layer of solid blocks in all of these areas, and some glass blocks right here so we can actually see into the Trident killer. Place in yourself a glass block directly above the Trident killer and a torch right here just to make sure it's bright in there. Place in yourself a solid block roof, and now we need ourselves a temporary block and a piston facing into this block right here. So now go ahead and place in yourself a redstone torch on the side of this block right here, a repeater right here on 1 tick, solid block right there, and then redstone dust above and below it, and then a solid block right there. That is going to create a quick clock, which is going to turn on your Trident killer and kill all of your mobs. So place a lever on that block. That is going to be your off switch, and now we just need to toss in ourselves a couple of solid blocks right there, and then an impaling 5 Trident. That's ideal to kill your pillagers faster, but you could just use a regular Trident. We're also going to place a couple of leaves directly on top of this roof right here. That way the pillager doesn't spawn on the roof of the Trident killer. If you have a Pillager Outpost with multiple spawn spots, then just build one of these Trident killers at every spawn spot. If you go down below the Trident killer, you can also expand this storage into multiple double chests or into an item sorter or whatever you want. Now that the Trident killers are done, go ahead and mark out the center block on the top of the Pillager Outpost roof with something obvious, and we need to pillar up from this floor layer by 42 blocks. So the top layer of my outpost is at Y level 84. If we go up by 42, that's going to take us up to Y 126. And we're going to go up directly above the center of the Pillager Outpost. So once we get up here, we need to build this general shape right here. So we're going to have 6 solid blocks in that kind of shape. and then just some scaffolding going around the edges. And this corner scaffolding right here is directly above the center of the Pillager Outpost. So go ahead and get this built up, and that is going to be the foundation of the raid farm. So first thing that we're going to do is expand this little scaffolding platform. Basically, we want this to be 4 blocks long and 4 blocks wide. That way you actually have some places to stand in. And then we're going to put in ourselves a little bit of a barrier of leaves going all the way around this area. Now, raids cannot spawn on leaves or scaffolding. These are like the only 2 things they don't spawn on. So you have to build the farm exactly as shown. Otherwise, raids are going to spawn everywhere. Now we're going to place in ourselves a platform of leaves in this area. It's going to be 2 blocks wide and go all the way along to this section over here. Pop out this block right here and place a solid block above it. And now we just need a little guardrail of solid blocks going all the way around this thing until we get to this side where we'll have a couple of leaves. Now, this is going to have ourselves a water source right in that corner, and that's going to push all of our items down out of the farm and down to the storage system. Now place in 4 leaf blocks right here on that edge. Place in 3 solid blocks behind it, a lower slab, and then you need a solid block underneath it, and then 8 solid blocks going backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this is all going to be 4 blocks wide. So go ahead and fill in this entire platform of solid blocks for all of your raids to spawn on, and then we need in our 4 slabs right here, 4 solid blocks, and that is the entire spawning platform for the raid farm. So now we need to put in a 2 block thick wall going all the way around this entire thing. So we're going to start right here and just put in ourselves a whole line of blocks going all the way to the back, and then just continue this around all the way until we get back to the front over here, and then put in another layer of blocks going around this again. The walls need to be 2 blocks thick because Ravagers are known to glitch through blocks and just like cause havoc. So that is the base layer. This needs to be going up by 5 blocks in total. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and basically just fill in this entire thing 2 blocks thick, 5 blocks tall, all the way around. And that's the entire wall system. It really is just a wall. There's not much else to say about it. It's 5 blocks tall in the back, and then it gets 4 blocks tall here in the front because the floor goes up by a block. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and place in ourselves a water source right here, and then 1 in the middle so that it all floods across and floods to the slab layer. We now need 4 signs in these locations, and then we need 4 signs right here as well, and 4 signs right here. That way we can place a water bucket on that corner and on that corner, and that's going to flood and push all the mobs into the center line. Now we're going to build up the front wall, so go ahead and put in a glass wall going all the way across. So that is 3 blocks tall, and then you need some glass blocks above all of these signs right here. Now place in 3 solid blocks going towards the back until it lines up with this line of leaves, and this needs to be 2 blocks tall and go all the way across so that this entire area is completely filled in. Now place in 2 solid blocks right there. Now head to the back of the farm, and we're going to skip 3 blocks in the back here. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then place in a solid block right here. We need an entire rim of extra solid blocks going all the way around so that Ravagers can't break any of the leaves. They're very chunky. And now we can cover up the entirety of this upper layer with leaf blocks to prevent raids spawning where we don't want them. So literally just cover all of this in a single layer of leaves going all the way around. Now it's time for the lava blade to kill the Ravagers. So we need ourselves a little extension of leaves that goes out by 5 blocks right here, and that's going to be filling up the entire middle. And then we need a layer of glass underneath all of those leaves like so. Now get yourself 3 signs and place that down in the middle, and then 3 signs on the right and 4 signs on the left over here, and place another sign on the side of that sign. Now place in 1 lava bucket right there and let that flow, and that is going to be the lava killer for the Ravagers. So that lava should not be able to light any of your leaves on fire. It's just far enough away that you should be fine. And now to install the Trident killer, go to the front of the farm and break out these 6 blocks right here. Place in a piston facing that way and a piston facing that way. We need a solid block and a leaf above that. Now go ahead and place in ourselves a solid block here, here, and here, and then 1 right there as well. We need a redstone torch right there, a repeater on 1 tick, and then a redstone dust. Now place in a lever, and that is going to turn off that clock. So grab yourself an impaling 5 trident. You need to throw that right there in the middle, and it needs to have impaling 5 on it to get the best rates to kill the mobs the fastest. Just get impaling 5. So once you've thrown in a trident, cover up all this with 4 leaves, and cover up all that with some leaves, and you are good to go. And now it's time for the funnest part of the build, is getting a villager to the top of the farm. There's a bunch of different ways to do this, but basically you just need like any random villager, doesn't matter what it is. You can use a nether portal, a minecart rail, you can use a bubble column, you can use whatever you want to get this villager up there. Personally, the easiest and quickest way for me, but it is a little bit sketchy, is to put your villager in a boat, click on that boat with a lead, and then just go up some scaffolding. Now, this is gonna fly all over the place sometimes, it's gonna be super sketchy, but it's also kind of hilarious when it gets out of control. So once you get a villager up to the top of the mob farm, just go ahead and click on the boat, that'll remove the lead, and then you can just get inside of that boat and just start, you know, directing this where you want it. Overall, it's not very hard to get a villager up here, but it can seem a little bit daunting. So go to the back of the raid farm and place 6 blocks going up right here, and then we're going to place over 2 blocks and the bed on this location right here. So you can go ahead and remove this pillar, and now we need to place in a couple of leaves directly above the bed, and the villager is going to be standing right here above the pillow of the bed. So we need to put in some leaf blocks to every side, it's just to act as a little bit of a cage. So bring your villager over with a little bridge and the boat, and basically just drop them right on in there. So when your villager gets close enough to the bed to detect it, it's going to link to the bed and get some green particles. You might notice these, but if you don't, just don't worry about it. Basically, the villager is going to link to it eventually. And once you have the villager in there, just go ahead and put a leaf block above it, and it's pretty much good to go. The last thing to do is to figure out where your storage system goes. This is really easy. Just go ahead and break out a couple of blocks, throw in a few stacks of items, or really any amount of items, and then it's going to slowly get pushed out over here and fall straight down. If we drop down to the outpost, as you can see, those items landed right here. Just break the block that's directly underneath it until you get down to the bottom, basically. And then once we get down here, we can set up any kind of storage system that you want. I have several tutorials for storage systems that you can check out. Links are down below. This storage system is just bulk storage with no sorting. I will have a tutorial out sometime eventually, and that'll show you like how to sort out every single individual item from a raid farm and how to get the most use out of your raid farm. So make sure you subscribe, that way you don't miss it. So for some basic bulk storage, you want to go to the side of the outpost where your items are going to be falling down. Put in yourselves a line of double chests and then hoppers into the backs of all of those. And I'm going to make this 3 blocks tall because the raid farm produces a lot of items. So now you want hoppers going into the backs of every single one of those chests, just like so. And now we're going to get ourselves a double chest on the end just for extra storage. Hoppers going towards the right, and then another double chest right here, and a hopper right into the back side of it like so. This hopper, notably, needs to be right underneath the output of the raid farm. So if you drop items into your raid farm, they should fall straight down into this hopper and then go into your bulk storage system. This is the worst kind of storage system that you can build. A couple last minute notes: if you're playing in a snowy biome, then snow will accumulate on top of your leaves, and eventually raids will spawn on top of that. So cover all the leaves in your farm with a layer of string to prevent that snow. And you also need to place some signs inside of your water sources in order to prevent them from freezing. I'd recommend AFKing with very little items in your inventory, just in case you do somehow manage to die. So put a chest or an ender chest up here, but make sure they are covered with leaves. And if you're going to be AFKing up here for a long time, put a roof of solid blocks above the player's head with some leaves on top of them. And as long as there's solid blocks above the player, that'll prevent phantoms from spawning. You can set your spawn down here on the ground just fine. And I would also recommend putting a lightning rod down over here. That way the farm doesn't catch on fire or you get hit by lightning. And if you don't have an elytra to get up to your farm, then you're going to need one of these here scaffolding skyscrapers. If for some reason raids do spawn on the ground, which shouldn't happen, that hasn't happened in the hours and hours of my testing, then you'll need to cover everything in leaves, or make sure that everything's built correctly, or make sure there's no other villagers or village stuff in the area, like beds, bells, workstations, etc. And now your raid farm is good to go, so go ahead and turn on the lower trident killer, and just go ahead and AFK at the top of the farm for a minute. So once you get some bad omen, that is going to start the first raid in your raid farm, and as long as everything is covered in leaves or made out of scaffolding, then you should be fine and all the raiders should spawn inside of there. And there we go, we got our first raiders. So go ahead and turn on the Trident killer and just AFK right against this wall while you're holding a looting free sword. You'll pick up all the experience and you are good to go. If you enjoyed today's Bedrock Edition tutorial, then drop a like and consider subscribing for future ones. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys down in the comments and in the next one. And then there was silence.